Happy Wednesday, and welcome to another live morning broadcast with Real Estate Mindset and Mitch Vexler, here to talk to you guys today about a market update, housing market update. You guys are going to love the housing market update as well as a mortgage update. But we're going to start by talking about what's going on with the government and going over the whole shutdown, which is essentially an illusion of financial responsibility and negotiation. It's an absolute circus right now over at our government. So we're going to go over all that stuff today, as well as go into page 15, 16, and 17 of the Amicus Brief made by Mitch Vexler. And again, we're reading that Amicus Brief to you guys because we want you to be aware and also give you the ammunition on how to talk about abolishing property taxes. And we're asking for your support. We have some really great news. I put this comment up on here. And by the way, you guys, we're freshly back from Dallas. I pulled a one-day turnaround trip. I hope you guys like that video. But my gosh, Mitch, we got a lot to talk about today. Here's the comment on the screen. Anyone have a contact for a real estate tax attorney to fight for taxes? I'm fed up. I've already protested, and I'm a busy truck driver. Thank you all. Keep fighting. Mitch, this is a great opportunity. And then after you say this, we'll go into the government shutdown. But this is a great opportunity to talk to the viewers about kind of the early steps that's being taken right now to create a class action lawsuit and a mechanism for people to be able to sign up for a class action lawsuit in any state against the government and property taxes. Can you explain what's up your sleeve, sir?
There's been a few meetings, and with the attorney in Washington, who's also working and speaking with the SEC in Washington, about taking this to the next level, which would be the theory of forming class action lawsuits, not just at Denton Central Appraisal District in Denton County, but in fact across the state of Texas, and then in fact across the United States. So the trial brief that I've prepared is almost done. So Leslie and I have been hammering away on that literally for almost 2 weeks solid, morning, noon, and night. And it's almost done. Well, that trial brief is applicable not just in Texas, but across the United States. The math is the math, the formulas are the formulas, and the laws that were broken are the laws that were broken. So the theory being, if we form a series of class actions, one would be for people to receive some money back on their overpayment. Well, coincidentally, that spreadsheet that I put out a few weeks ago shows how much money has been stolen from mom and pop over a 5-year period and projects forward what the next 6 years will be. Well, the reason we're all here is to help mom and pop understand exactly how much money has been stolen and see if we can't get some of that back, and then see if we can't shut down the ability of these states to gain access to the bond market because of the frauds that they've committed. And that's what we are all doing here. So we're going to step through this idea over the next week or so to see if we can't get something working on a class action where there's mom and pop, but there's also a class action of those people who have lost their homes due to tax lien foreclosures. One step at a time, but we're going to try to put all this together. But the real question is how many people would want to participate in it, and we're trying to figure that out because we don't want to guess. We have to be able to say and be able to reach these people that have been ripped off, and that is where the real power is. And with regard to that gentleman that said he wants to file suit, he's probably right because he knows his own math. However, if you could reach out to neighbors, because he's a truck driver, he's not doing it. And if you think that finding an attorney is that easy to do this, you would be wrong, right? I just happen to have the right attorneys. I have one who happens to be a CPA as well as a litigator. And then, interestingly enough, the attorney in Washington is also an actuary trained at the London School of Economics, in addition to being a litigator. So if that truck driver could find somebody in his neighborhood, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional people that have the same problem and join forces, let them reach out, find an attorney, and then all of you can share the load. Well, coincidentally, that is exactly what the class action is about. Everybody pays in a little bit of money, but they share the load in the legal fees and the structure of getting that class action website built. And that becomes, just so everybody's clear, that's the political solution. Even though we're using the law to establish a political solution, that's what this is about. these politicians are going to have to get on board, because at some point their access to the bond market will be shut off. When the SEC finally steps up and says, okay, you school districts have committed fraud, it's irrefutable, we've got you. Well, when that happens, they will no longer have access to the bond market. When they don't have access to the bond market, that's when they have to say, well, we need cash to operate. And that's when the bill kicks in. The bill being repeal all property tax in favor of the uniform state sales tax. So all these things are hooked up, and that's where it's headed. Go ahead.
We got a couple comments here. And by the way, I just wanted to respond to what he says so you guys understand, the viewers, this is such a big deal. Now, obviously, and I want to answer P Nice has a question right there, Mitch, on the bottom of the screen, but this is such a big deal because it takes a lot of the heavy lifting out for you guys and allows you to join a team that's already made potentially headway on a class action lawsuit. And the first thing I said to Mitch is one of the primary reasons why I love creating a site or a mechanism for people to join a class action. Number one is the attorneys. It has been, for me personally, finding an attorney for Steve Friends, the ARB chairman that assaulted me, it's very difficult to find attorneys that are willing to step up. So this is very, very good, Mitch. Now, P Nice has a question on the bottom here. If someone's renting and they don't own a property, can they join a class action for property tax?
The answer would be yes, but that may be a class in and of itself, which would be the second class. So if people lost a home due to tax lien foreclosure, that is a class action sitting right there. Those people who lost money by virtue of the overvaluation and the fraudulent overtaxation, that's another class. So there's probably going to be 3 or 4 classes when all said and done in this, but you would fall more than likely in that particular case back to the first class. You lost money, you overpaid, and that's very important.
Okay, I got a comment from Austin. Austin, thank you so much for your support and for that $5 super chat. We're going to jump into the government shutdown, I promise, guys. This is what Austin's saying. As rates drop, the value of builder rate incentives decrease. This will cause further downward pressure on home prices. Thoughts? Great work, gentlemen. So it's basically saying that the further that the market, so like the market interest rates, like you and I can get it, the further that those go down, the builders won't have to pay as much money to buy them down even further. Because remember, the builders like Lennar is offering interest rates. And well, you guys saw, we just did a video, one at 3%, one at 2%, and that's 2 to 3 points under market value. So again, I think what Austin's alluding to is instead of them using the money to buy the rates down, he's hoping that they're going to bring the prices down. The problem with that, Austin, is they've done everything they can possibly think of, in fact, new things to keep the prices sustained. Because if they, other than Lennar, now Lennar can't do anything except lower prices because Lennar's offering incentives plus price decline, it's not going to work, right? So they're going to try not to decrease prices because they don't want to throw off all of the comparables and trap all of the owners. Because remember, by them reducing prices, they trap all those owners. So I think that they're going to have to reduce prices regardless of what happens with interest rates. And again, thank you, Austin, for the support. Mitch, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so it's somewhat the opposite of what he's saying, and let me explain why. I've been involved in subdivisions and built a lot of subdivisions. And I had in 2005 and 2006 an issue with a very large builder. I built the subdivision, they buy the lots. That's how it works. They get into trouble and they turn around and they say, well, we're X, we're public. If you don't like it, and we're going to default on our contract, we're going to change the terms of our contract unilaterally. If you don't like it, sue us. I did. They lost. So the point of the matter is, when that happens, that's the telltale sign that things are about to implode. And they did. 2007. This is exactly what happened. So it's not what you are seeing at the top level. It's the cost of the carry of the lots. And as Travis showed in that video yesterday, that cost of the carry of those lots, look at the amount of lots. They can't carry this. Their floor plans won't let them carry this. They're so far out over their skis, they're never going to touch the ground. They're just going to crash. And that's the problem. So you have to realize it's worse than you see at the surface because of the cost of carry on the inventory. When you factor that in, they're going to have to jettison this stuff and they're going to have to take losses on these lots. Plus, when they do default on the contracts to the builders, the lot builders, they're going to end up going, those lot builders, and finding other builders, other home builders. So that's going to put more pressure on. In other words, it starts a downward spiral that's extremely difficult to climb out of, because now we're facing political headwinds as well. And that's the combination of putting us right back to 2007 as we are speaking.
Mitch, all I have to say is well said as usual, sir, and very nice suit and nice hairdo as well. But anyways, Mitch, I'll tell you, man, I love working with you. I can't keep up with you. You're an absolute beast, maniac machine at working. But it's an absolute pleasure, sir. I wanted to throw this up from Fuzzy Booger. Why do you make me say your name, Fuzzy Booger? That's great. Hey, man, thank you so much for the support and that $10. It means a lot to me, guys. You guys keep me going. But I wanted to put this up as well, Mitch, because he's supporting, basically, you see there, class action. We will support you. There's I don't know, maybe 5 to 6 people that also said, hey, set it up and we'll support you guys. So there's a lot of people that want that. They want a mechanism to where they can join it because they're busy paying their bills, going to work and trying to raise their children and just trying to be happy in life. So a lot of people, I think, are going to join this, but we have to have the system in place and it has to work. We have to come through for these people, and I think we will. Let's get started on the government shutdown right now, Mitch. We're a little bit behind, and I apologize for that, guys. So let's see what's going on with the government shutdown. Okay, I'm going to remove this real quick. And again, thank you so much for the support. So let's start here, you guys. All right, let me get you guys some information on the government shutdown. I put my first timestamp. Don't forget, you guys can come back here. You can look at the timestamps and you can go over this because there's going to be some really valuable information especially once we get to the housing market and mortgage update. But this is what this says. Government shutdown begins as Trump layoff threats loom. So a few bullet points here, guys, and then we'll talk about what impacts that the government shutting down can have on the economy and certain services that the government is supposed to be giving to us. But what we know today, the shutdown begins. The federal government shutdown began just after midnight after the Senate failed to pass a short-term funding bill. What comes next? The Senate is expected to reconvene this morning, today, and vote on the same 2 bills that it failed to pass last night. One from Democrats that contains key health care revisions and one from Republicans that does not. So this is now about health, but I'm going to be honest, guys, this is only about printing more money. This is only about spending money that they don't have. This is all an illusion. This is an illusion of negotiations. It's an illusion of financial responsibility. This is an absolute clown show. Every single one of these people should be fired. Think about how much money they have made off of the American people, and think about how many times they have failed the American people. Any employer that has employees like our Congress would have fired every single one of them. Why? Here's the thing, guys. We need to get out of our houses and vote. Anyways, agency plans. Every federal department and agency has its own set of procedures for operating during the shutdown. Many federal employees will be furloughed, and we're going to go over those furlough numbers here in a minute. But others may need to show up to work without pay, like the military. They're working for free. President Donald Trump has also threatened to impose mass layoffs of federal workers, but that's been happening since February. Now, let me show you guys this here. A couple things just now. This is very interesting. They're actually going to furlough about roughly half of the amount of employees that are normally furloughed. So it's actually the opposite of what you would think would happen. Here's what this article is saying. Just 23% of Fed workers would be furloughed if the government shuts down under the Trump administration's plan. So you would say, oh, 23%. When I first saw that, it's like, dang, 23% is a lot of people because millions of people work for the government. The Trump administration is planning to furlough around 550,000 federal employees on Wednesday. Why is it the Trump administration? I mean, anyways, do you see the division that these articles reek of? I don't care if it's the left or the right. I hate division. I'm on team mom and pop, and that's it. And I'm anti-corruption and lying, right? Which is what they do. They lie and they're corrupt, and it's a real problem. On Wednesday, if Congress fails to act before government funding expires late Tuesday evening, representing an unusually low, less than 1/4 of the workforce. Okay, and here's what the key point here. In the last 15 years, administrations have typically prepared to furlough between 35 and 40% of the federal workforce. So I'm wondering if the reason why it's 23% is because they've already laid off over 200,000 employees. I don't know the answer to that, but I know that it's normally 35 to 40, and it's not that case right now. Now, if you're wondering the furlough rates, this is very interesting, guys, where the furloughs are coming from, what agencies within the government. Crazy stuff. EEOC, 92.9% furloughed. NASA, 92.9% of workers furloughed. The SEC, now, the first two, I'm like, whatever, but the SEC, if the SEC is doing their job and prosecuting fraud, hopefully here in Texas, hint, hint, Ken Paxton, watch out. Abbott, watch out. But anyways, SEC 90.8, Mitch, we may not get some help. We may not get help from the SEC for a little bit because 90.8% of their staff is furloughed. NRC, 90.2. EPA, complete waste. What's up with the forever chemicals and everything? EPA, 88.6. FCC, 87.4. ED, I think that's Education Department, 87.4. Commerce, 83.6. HUD, complete waste, 82.1. NSF, 80. FTC, 66. State, 61.7. Look at the White House. Holy smokes. The White House, 60.7% of the staff in the White House is actually furloughed as well. That's very interesting. SBA. And then you get to the bottom here, and it's very interesting how it gets lower. So GSA 36, transportation 31%, SBA 23.5 only. That's strange to me. USDA 23.1, DOJ 15.1, DHS 11.3, VA 4.2, and the Treasury only 2.2 in the Treasury. Very interesting. Let's go here real quick and listen to this video. And then after we listen to this video, we'll go into the various sectors in the economy and we'll start talking about what it's going to look like once those furloughs start taking effect, which is going to happen today. So we'll start with this video and then we'll come back to the article.
Tonight, the Senate held a series of votes designed to avoid what had become increasingly inevitable. Both of those votes failed to meet the 60-vote threshold, meaning that at midnight tonight, the federal government is set to shut down.
Tonight, just hours from a partial federal government shutdown, Senate Republicans making a last-ditch effort to get enough Democratic votes to keep the government open. But coming up short, Republicans need 60 votes to pass a spending bill to avoid a shutdown, meaning they need at least 7 Democrats to support it.
It's up to Senate Democrats. If they decide to vote it down tonight, they're going to be the ones that have to explain at midnight tonight why the government is shut down.
Democrats say they want to reverse GOP changes to Medicaid.
What's the plan to get out of it?
The American people are learning how bad this healthcare crisis is, and they will put tremendous heat on Republicans to solve it.
But Republicans say Democrats should not shut down the government while both sides negotiate.
Is there any way out?
I don't know. That's what worries me. I don't know why. I just say to my Democrat colleagues, there is no reason for a shutdown.
The last thing we want to do is shut it down, but a lot of good can come down from shutdowns. We can get rid of a lot of things that we didn't want, and they'd be Democrat things.
President Trump tonight warning of mass firings.
The Democrats want to shut it down, so when you shut it down, you have to do layoffs.
You can't fire massive firings in the federal government without hurting the quality of services for the American people.
In a shutdown, Social Security, Medicare, and VA benefits would continue, as would student loans. But national parks could close, and 750,000 federal workers could be furloughed. Others, like TSA officers, would work without pay.
We're looking for bombs, weapons, stuff like that, and you can't miss, right? So you don't want officers with added stress of how am I going to pay my bills?
Ryan Nobles, NBC News.
Personally, I think they have that stress without, whether or not the government shut down, but not getting an income is going to make it more stressful. Mitch, I want to jump into the market update, but first let me finish going over this article, then we'll come back to you. All right, so real quick here. So a few things, guys. How does the shutdown affect the military? The majority of veteran benefits and military operations will continue to be funded regardless of the shutdown. And here is the problem. The pay for military and civilian workers will be delayed until a funding deal is reached. So they still got to work. The military still has to work, but they're not going to get paid, at least while the government is shut down. How is air travel affected? In a letter Monday, a coalition of aviation groups urged Congress to avoid a shutdown, saying funding lapse will hurt the Federal Aviation Administration. The letter cited that furloughing of many FAA employees and said that ceasing of funding could create backlogs that will create delays in critical FAA services long after funding resumes. So they're saying if you shut us down, you can't just turn on the government and expect no damage to have been done. Will Social Security checks still go out? Social Security benefits are going to still go out, guys. They are mandatory under law, but there are going to be a few people in the administration that are furloughed. How does the government shutdown affect the Department of Health and Services? So there's a contingency plan, but the interesting thing here is they're going to be furloughing 32,000 of their 80,000 employees. That's pretty crazy. How is the FDA affected? The FDA will continue exempt activities, which include drug and medical device reviews and recalls. Okay, interesting. Are students able to get loans? Of course they are. Anytime it has to do with money, they're going to still be fully operational, right? It's just the other places that like we need, they're going to shut that down. But if you want to get into debt, well, the government's here for you because the Department of Education will continue to disperse student aid through Pell Grants and federal district loan programs. What impact on the CDC? The CDC will continue to monitor and respond to disease outbreaks, but it will be hampered in providing the public with health-related information. But then again, you guys completely failed us on the lockdowns. I won't use that C word, but you completely failed us. You allowed it to spread around the world. Why would we care about anything you say, to be honest? How are nutritional programs for the poor and women and children affected? The Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, also known as STAMPS, see here, is a program for obviously people in poverty, and it will continue during a shutdown, according to the Department of Agricultural's contingency plans. That's good. We can't have people going hungry. Will natural parks stay open? Natural Park State Contingency Plan was released on Tuesday night, and it did say that they will remain partially open. So if you're in Texas and you want to go fishing at South Padre Island or Penns, guess what? You probably can. Can I still go to the, why is this, are you serious? Can I still go to the Smithsonian Museum or the National Zoo in Washington, D.C.? The Smithsonian Museum is the ultimate suppression mechanism. They have suppressed so much. That's another story. The Smithsonian Institute Museum and National Zoo, major draws for visitors to the nation's capital, said Tuesday afternoon that they will use funds from previous year to remain open to the public at least through October 6th. So I'm not sure who, really wants to go see those things, but there it is. Treasury yields dive, probability of 2 more rate cuts, after negative ADP private sector jobs. So we got job numbers out. I'll do a separate video on that. Stock futures remain lower after ADP report shows private payroll decline in September. Dollar slides for 4th day as U.S. government shuts down. This is just kind of the breaking news. That's so metal, silver and gold rolled in September. We're going to go over the indexes right now. We're going to take a look at what performed best. Was it the indexes? Was it the metals? What's the VIX looking like? But before I do that, before we go into our market update, Mitch, your reaction to the circus that is our government and their shutdown.
This is nothing more than political theater, and I've seen this many times throughout my career. And the political theater is a negotiation, but the problem is this isn't really a negotiation. In order to have a negotiation, you have to have a win-win settlement. Neither side may get what they want, but it is settled, and that makes it a win-win. In this particular case, as is in all government shutdowns, this is not a negotiation. This is political theater for purposes of extortion. And the math matters, and we've said this in multiple videos with regard to these companies that hire people based on their owners' political ideology, and then the people that they hired end up getting fired when they're proven wrong. Well, the government does the same thing. The companies and the government are both wrong. You do not hire people, because if you hire people for purposes of political ideology, you're jacking around with their lives. And the problem is they get hired not based on the skill, but based on the political ideology. So they failed the most basic tenet of business. The most basic tenet of business is to operate the company to maximum efficiency. Well, the problem with not doing that is that they've put the problem on the back of mom and pop. Well, we're going to hire this employee, and 6 months later, we're going to fire this employee. Think of the ramifications. that employee no longer has the money. They don't have the ability to go to restaurants. They can't pay the roof over their head, the rent or the mortgage. This is people doing bad things. And when they say we're going to shut the government down, President Trump does have the right under law to start firing an awful lot of people that may not be fired as a direct result quickly at this time. So there's all sorts of things going on, but this is not a negotiation. This is a full-blown extortion. It's happened before. I don't get really twisted up about it because eventually they're going to end up opening it up and people get their checks as they always do. And then somebody made a comment on that ballroom. Let's get something straight. Ballrooms generally sit empty 99% of the time, as do ballrooms in hotels. So the idea of if he wants a ballroom, fine. President Trump can pay for it. No problem. He's got the money. So it's just these type of things. I never know where people are going with this, but look at the math. And if it's only going to sit occupied 1% or 2% of the time, what in the world are we building it for? Shouldn't be on the back of the taxpayers. We don't have the money.
Yeah, but we certainly got the debt. So, Mitch, this is going to be your question after the market update. I'm going to go over the market update right now. I'm going to put the timestamp on right now. But that's your question, okay? The revaluing of gold. Don't answer it yet. Don't answer it yet. We will get there. But let's do the market update because the market just opened. Let me just refresh this real quick. And then we'll go into this stuff. So here, okay, my screens aren't refreshed yet, but here's our market report right here. Let's see what's going on in the market. I'm going to remove this from, so locked, actually, I'll just leave it up there. All right, so P-Nice, your comment's going to be up there just so Mitch and everyone knows what the next thing is. But here's the market right here. So this is, it says closed. Let me refresh this, but it just opened and it opens, basically it's sideways, down slightly right now. But what we're going to do, remember on Saturday, we're going to look at the 1 week return on the indexes and metals. But our first live of the week, we're going to look at the 1 year return, starting with the Dow Jones. So the 1 year return on the Dow, actually not as bad as a lot of people think. It's actually up over 1 year, 9.75% on the Dow. When we look at the S&P is actually down decent 0.44%, still kind of sideways, to be honest with you. But let's look at the year. As you guys can see highlighted on the bottom right there, the S&P's up pretty decent, actually, over 1 year. That's a lot of gains over 1 year, 16.63% on the S&P. Take a look now, guys, at the NASDAQ. Okay, so NASDAQ also opening down. Very interesting. NASDAQ is up. Wow, this is crazy. So the NASDAQ kicking butt, at least over the last year. It's obviously overvalued. There's no fundamentals, but regardless, you're up over 1 year, 25.68%. That is a lot of gains. Let's go on to the metals now. Guys, look at this. Gold hit 3,900 today. Okay, right before we started recording, look at that. It hit over 3,900, about 3,920, I think it got to. So got, okay, 3,922. Right now, gold is sitting at 3,896. There's something wrong with the economy. If you want to get out of the system, I've wanted to get out of the system. I've put my money, I'm not telling you guys what to do with your money, but I don't want to be part of this absolute debauchery. So I've started investing, including my down payment to buy a house, in metal. It's historic. It's biblical. It's even religious if you want to. I put it in metal. And that's done very, very well. But let's look at the return over gold. So over 1 year, this is so crazy. 1 year, gold in just 1 year, 45%. Gold is up 45%. In fact, less than 1 year, if you look at the year to date, gold is up 47%. Now look at silver, guys. Silver, oh my gosh, silver has been just absolutely performing like an absolute beast because the economy is so bad. There's so much inflation and there's so much devaluing of the dollar. Metals are skyrocketing right now. That's why you see that. Silver right now, $47.51. I don't know if we're going to hit $50 in October, but comment below. Do you guys think we're going to hit $50 in October? Mitch and I have been talking about $50 by year end, but my gosh, this thing has been skyrocketing so much. We may hit $50 in October. I don't know if we will. Let me know what you guys think. But let's scroll down and look at the 1 year performance. This is crazy, guys. Look at the 1 year. This outperforms 401ks. This outperforms pensions. Metals are outperforming everything. 1 year on silver. 1 year up 47.89%. In fact, year to date on silver, 62%. If you have money in a pension, if you have money in a 401k, you're going to really want to put these things side by side. Put your gains, not how much money you're putting into your 401k, but put your gains, how much money you're making side by side, other investments. And you guys tell me, is a 401k and pension a good idea? Well, maybe if your employer is matching. If your employer is matching 100%, obviously. But if it's not, if they're not matching, there's almost no reason to have it. Now, here is our crypto update. Bitcoin sitting at 114, up over 1 year. A lot of movement in crypto over the last year. I'm not saying invest in crypto. I'm just showing you guys the yields on this. The return over 1 year, Bitcoin up 79%. That's real. It went up that much. XRP up over 1 year. First of all, sitting at $2.84, but this is up over 1 year, 358%. That's absolutely insane. Now, houses, okay, just in case there's any realtors that are still like, no, buy a house. It's the best thing ever. But we're like, actually, buying a house can be the best thing ever. But there's an important thing, can be. People are not listening to us when we say can be. There's a huge can be a great thing. Right now, it is not a great thing. Now, here's Zillow, and here's the come up over the last year for houses. Houses are down 0.01%. year over year. Now, obviously, the housing market is hyper local. You guys know that we have to do hyper local analysis to figure out what homes are really selling for. Is it market? Is it not market? But either way, when we compare purchasing a house over the last year compared to almost anything we just covered right now, houses are down. Everything else is skyrocketing up. Okay. Just to put it in perspective. Now, as far as the greed in the market, fear and greed index for the stock market, people are neutral. So people are kind of probably waiting for something to happen. They just probably the thing that they're going to see happen is deflation, because our economy in the stock market will naturally deflate. It will naturally decline in value because mom and pop can't support this. The only reason our economy is not deflating is because they keep propping it up. So again, understand, our economy, if they do nothing, is automatically going to go down. Prices will automatically drop. It's taking them doing stuff, manipulating the economy, manipulating the dollar, manipulating the M1 money supply that is causing prices to remain this way. But just stop doing that and all hell breaks loose. Now, you can't see that in the VIX. The VIX is at $16.68. The VIX is reactionary. It is not telling us of volatility. In fact, if you guys look over the year over year on the VIX, it's down over 1 year. So it's saying right now it's less volatile than this time last year by 11%. That's insane. But they use this VIX for computer algorithms. It doesn't really help us at all, you guys. Now, here's the Dixie. Dixie's low right now, close to a 52-week low. 52-week low is 96.22. You see that there. The Dixie's at 97.55. This is their devaluing. Yeah, that's low, but it can go a lot lower, which means they can continue to destroy us in the form of inflation and devaluing our purchasing power. They can keep doing that until there's a total implosion. So it's a bad thing, guys. And here's what is going on. Let me show you guys this. This is an interesting number. This is the total national debt per second. So per second, the government's overspending by $68,911. Let me get on that clock. You know what I mean? Let me get 5 seconds out of that clock. Let me get 10 seconds and I'll make a change in the world that lasts forever. Let me get 10 seconds, Mitch. 10 seconds is all I want of that right there. Give me 10 seconds and we'll start making change. But $68,000 in deficit per second. Right now we're sitting at 1.9. This is going to update probably in a week, and it's going to show us what the yearly deficit was. But this is exceeding last year's deficit by 4%. So we got $2 billion in continued deficit. Now I'm going to go into our first video. But before I do, Mitch, you got a question right there. I want to ask you your thoughts on government real valuing. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but if you did, that's clever. But revaluing the gold they hold. Any comments on that and the market?
The problem with the revaluing issue is that people don't understand how deep this actually gets. So if you look at it and say M1, M2, M3, and the derivatives being the bonds that are held. So, okay, we, the US government, have X amount of ounces of gold in our vaults. So the implications for the bond investors, just so everybody understands, mom and pop has been lied to. The theory for many years, as decades, well, 60-40, 60% stock, 40% bonds. That has been proven to be complete, utter nonsense. It was an induced lie, self-induced lie. The US bond market is estimated to be around 46 trillion, making it a significant part of the global bond market, estimated to be 140 trillion. So if you take into account just M1 and M2, the spreadsheet that I've run shows that gold would be valued at roughly 48,000 an ounce. And if you take into account the M1, M2 and add the bonds to it, that takes it up to about $81,000 an ounce. Silver in history has shown that the gold to silver ratio would be 15-1. Give you an idea where silver's headed. Now, if they convert the book value of the US gold holdings to the current value, that would deliver roughly 1.1 trillion to the balance sheet by virtue of the mark to market. So it's a balance sheet of the US government. This would be stupid because the government would then lever that 1.1 trillion that they just picked up on the balance sheet, and they wouldn't pay down the debt. So that means that in reality, what's going to happen, they're going to have to take all this into account. And that would, in fact, push gold somewhere around 80,000 an ounce when you take all of these factors into account. But it would have to be on the proviso that the US government debt to GDP would never, ever extend past 30%. Right now, we're sitting at 120 some odd percent. So the idea of the revaluation based on what's in the vaults is complete nonsense because, again, you're handing a loaded gun to a monkey. They will take that money and they will spend it. They won't pay down the principal. So best to leave it alone because that's an actual reserve. I mean, that's a hard asset actual reserve. What it's on the books for doesn't matter. Wherever the world goes, but those ounces of gold allegedly are sitting there. That is what you want. That's why it's called a reserve. It doesn't matter if it's valued at $1 or $2. The truth is everybody knows it's worth more, but you don't have to say, well, we got an extra 1.1 trillion and now we're going to go use that and lever the hell out of that. No, you don't do that. It's the last thing you do.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that the government, our government wants the new reserves. They don't want gold reserves. They want debt reserves. They want the treasury. They want American debt to be the new collateral. Think about how messed up that is. Like you and I are the collateral for bankers to make money throughout the world. That's not a good thing. That it really sucks. But let's go to our first video. It's on job openings to give you guys a little bit of info on this. Let me know that the audio is okay, and then we'll come back and we will continue our discussions. Mitch, you got the mute.
To Rick Santelli again. Hey, Rick.
Yes, on Jolts, this is an August read. Openings expected to be right around 7.2 million. A little bit extra horsepower, 7,227,000. That'll be the best number since, well, just June. But in the rearview mirror, a nice upward revision. Last month, originally reported 7,181,000, becomes 7,208,000. And it's significant because that now changes the dynamics. That would have been last month, July, the weakest of the year. Moving it to 7,208,000 makes it the second weakest. The big number month now is March at 7,200,000, the lowest job openings of the year. If you look at Conference Board, these are September confidence numbers, and boy, they're disappointing. If we look at the headline, well below expectations at 94.2, the weakest since April of this year, sequentially lower, even though there was subtle positive revisions to all three metrics last month. If we look at the present situation, another big disappointment, 125.4, the weakest in September of 2024, well below 132.4 in the rearview mirror for our August final. And finally, expectations at 73.4. That is the weakest since June of this year and much sequentially lower, of course, than 74.7. So confidence disappoints, positive revision and a better Jolts number on the openings. We made the low yield of the session in treasuries on those data points. That's coming in right around 410 plus on a 10-year. Sarah, back to you.
You know what? At least he's got some charisma, you know? At least that guy's got charisma. So, you know, some people say charisma goes a long way, Mitch. We're going to jump in now, guys, to the Amicus. Now, when I'm reading this, and I'll go to Mitch to sum this up if I miss anything. Now, if you guys read, you know, as I'm reading this, if you agree with the Amicus, what we're really asking is not just your awareness, but that you guys take 10 minutes and send a letter of support to the Texas Supreme Court. You guys can come back to this video. After it's done, I'm going to paste what to say or like a template of what to say in the letter. So really, it would only take you maybe even less than 10 minutes. But also, I want you guys to understand, if you've been following us since we've been reading the Amicus in the mornings, you guys should be so proud of yourself, because we're really taking a complex legal situation and a legal document, and you guys are becoming experts on that. So you should be really proud of yourself if you've made it this far. I know it's boring, but this is very important to understand. So I'm going to go over this. We're just going to read one page at a time. But before I do that, I wanted to go quickly to page 9, because I wanted to remind you of two very important things. Now, first of all, the Supreme Court of Texas said, Mitch, you can't do anything. You don't have a legal right to pursue a remedy judicially. You have to go through the Appraisal Review Board. And Mitch is like, we can't go through the Appraisal Review Board because they're not set up to analyze fraud, and they're the very ones that are committing it. So that doesn't work. And so understanding that we have been given an impossible situation as American citizens, you have to understand Clearfield Trust versus United States. Okay, you have to understand that, because they play off of immunity. This case right here, and I'll read this: the government, when entering the commercial marketplace, descends from its position of sovereignty and is subject to the same rules as private entities. So it removes the immunity. The fact that they have immunity to break the law to begin with is insane to me. They should be the ones that don't have immunity. The lawmakers should be held highest standards, not immunity to give them the lowest standards. Insane. Now, under Patel versus Texas Department of Licensing, remember, this forbids the legislator from creating a constitutional dead zone, which is the ARB. So those are the, and then obviously we went through other cases, about 4 or 5 cases, but I always want you guys to remember those two things. They're engaged in the commercial marketplace, and I'm talking about ISD bonds. Now, again, as I'm reading this, guys, and we'll go through a page at a time, if you agree, okay, with what we're saying, or you believe in what we're saying, please just take 10 minutes, send a letter to the Texas Supreme Court. Okay, now here's the first thing here, starting on page 15. This case presents no novel departure from the court's jurisdiction. To the contrary, it arises squarely within the categories of appraisal litigation that the court has repeatedly granted in recent years. The constitutional questions posed here is equal and uniform taxation. That's so important. It's so important you guys understand this. Open courts, due course of law, and the limits of administration exclusivity are natural extensions of the court's existing precedent. So he's saying, like, hey, Supreme Court of Texas, you need to roll on this. In fact, you have already. Taken together, these authorities confirm that the petitioner, which is Mitch, claims lie within categories of dispute the Supreme Court of Texas has repeatedly reviewed. Far from being routine tax complaints, the issues here implicate fundamental constitutional protections, jurisdictional access to the court, and the financial integrity of the state's tax and bond system. Review is therefore both appropriate and necessary. And remember, outside of Clearfield and Patel, Mitch has also listed additional cases. One of them is the equal and uniform taxation. This is the Texas disposable system and landfills. And just to sum this up one more time, here the petitioners likewise challenge systemic departures from uniform appraisal methods, including arbitrary class codes and extra statutory manipulations of data. So they've already done this before. I think it's just this property tax, and they don't want to pick it up. Jurisdiction and administration exclusivity, which is in Mills CAD versus Encore Electric Delivery. Petitioners here raise a parallel concern that doctrines of administrative exclusivity are being used to bar fraud and constitutional claims from judicial review entirely. This is a huge problem, forcing taxpayers into the ARBs, which is the Appraisal Review District, that lack discovery powers, subpoena authority, and jurisdiction and adjudicate fraud. I'm sorry, guys. Just as in Mills CAD, this court review is required to preserve meaningful judicial oversight. So real quick, guys. Okay, so pertaining to Clearfield. Okay, so Clearfield said, if you engage in the marketplace, commercial marketplace, you no longer have immunity. So I wanted to prove that to you. Okay, so to Clearfield's point, here's EMMA. Okay, if you guys don't know what EMMA is, this is the Electronic Municipal Market Access. This is where they go to the marketplace to sell these bonds, the ISD bonds. So and look at every state is here. So for example, if I just want to look at Texas, I could go into Texas and I can type in whatever I wanted. Here's Austin Independent School District. Look at City of Arlington, City of Galveston. It's all right here, you guys. And okay, so that's Clearfield. But when we talk about Patel, look at what happened to me when I went to the ARB. This is an active court case. I have an active court case. Here's the proof right here. I highlighted it. Steve Friends, MCAT office versus the plaintiff, Travis Spencer. My remedy was I got assault, battered, and violently kicked out of that facility. That's what I got. They criminally trespassed me for being assaulted by this man who works for the ARB. He's the chairman of the ARB. So again, to Patel, here you go. Here's Patel. Here's Clearfield right here. It's an absolute debacle what's going on with property taxes. Everything needs to change. But Mitch, before I move on to our famous housing market update, where I'm going to do a lot of local analysis, can you sum up anything we talked about with the amicus to this point? And you are on mute.
The importance of the amicus, and it applies to all property owners, is that the legal battle is now framed up. We have the map. And as far as I know, we're the only source of evidence on this scale. So you and I need to be speaking with a unified voice. It would be ideal that everybody that watches these videos can get up to speed and speak truthfully in the same manner that I am, very bluntly, which is, here's the facts, this is what happened, here's the law that was broken. And when you speak with a unified voice, you must realize that the politicians have no comeback. They're caught. They're aiding and abetting a criminal conspiracy to defraud. They are caught. The evidence is irrefutable, and it's important that you understand the prior two courts agreed that fraud has been committed. They just simply said, we don't have the facility to adjudicate the fraud. Well, that is exactly what Travis just read, which is, yeah, you do, and it's right here. It's called the Supreme Court of Texas, and we believe that the Supreme Court of Texas will remand this case to the lower courts and say it rolls forward because it is fraud and it needs to be adjudicated. So this problem becomes right now today an issue of lack of oversight, and that must stop across the United States. This is not just a state of Texas problem or a Denton County problem. This is across the United States. The lack of oversight must stop. The equity stripping of all property owners must stop. The bonds will have to be dealt with. You and I are on the hook for their crimes, and that is A, not acceptable, and B, must be stopped. In the case of Denton Central Appraisal District, Leslie just finished polishing up the numbers 2 days ago, and as of 2025, between 2017 and 2025, the overtaxation, which is outside the confines of any law, is roughly 1.8 billion, which is then levered by the school districts, and now the interest on that 1.8 billion, and that's pure fraud, is many times greater than the original principal. They're rolling these values up and they're rolling the interest rates out. So it's roll up and roll out. The bottom line is they're not paying it off. They're compound cumulative, increasing it. And therefore, it ends up being that the Texas bond program is insolvent. So given these handful of items, the support that is necessary, which is what Travis was asking, is please send a letter of support to the Texas Supreme Court. And very shortly, I hope to have some answers as to where we're going to head with these class actions. But these things, as you've seen over the last 10 months, everything goes in a sequential pace because one issue builds upon the other. But the bottom line is your support in making these things roll forward is crucial, because your support is you at some point being able to stand in front of the politicians and your school boards and your central appraisal district and saying, yeah, we're not putting up with this.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll sue you into oblivion if necessary.
100%. And I hope that's what we're doing. I hope you guys that are listening to this are going to do that. You're going to stand up to these school boards. You're going to educate your communities, and you're going to help people in need, especially if you hear someone even at the grocery store say, hey, I'm struggling with my property taxes. Go out of your way to have a conversation with them. And if you don't even have all of the knowledge or directions, send them to our websites, Real Estate Mindset or Mitch Vexler, because we are trying to make a long-lasting difference in society. We want to be the guys that exist in this world that are not trying to make a killing or a dime off of you. We're trying to help change the world for the better because we need more people like that. In my opinion, we're going to go into the housing market update now, guys. You guys are going to love this update. So if you came here to learn about how to buy real estate, this is the segment for you. So I have that time stamped here. I want you to go back to every live I have and go to the last few, at least, as far as the housing market update, because I'm doing a thorough analysis for you guys. I'm showing you how to do the math. But real quick, before I do this, if you guys were listening to what we just read on the Amicus and you believe in the things that we're saying, please, again, support us. You have no idea how helpful just you are. Just one person, you, that's listening to this, that one letter of support sent to the Texas Supreme Court can make all of the difference in the world. I want you guys to know that. Please, from absolute bottom of my heart, take 10 minutes, send in the letter of support. I'm going to go back to the description of this video and I'm going to put in an example of that letter. But now, housing market update, you guys. This is a doozy right here. So what I'm showing you, first of all, I don't know what happened. Okay, the total amount of listings, it was 70,000, but it's now 100,000. So I don't think that in 1 week we have 25% more listings, which would be crazy if that's true. I think that they added another database. That's the only thing that makes sense because we don't have 25% more homes in 1 week, right, Mitch? But what I'm going to show you guys is I'm going to take 100,000 listings and I'm going to condense it to homes that are only under market value. Now, also, I'm going to go to download this form. I'm going to realestatemindset.org, change this a little bit, and I'm going to scroll down here to the subdivision analysis form. If I want to learn how to do it separately, here's a course to do, to take to learn how to do it for free. All of this stuff is for free that we're providing for you, but we're asking for your support as well. So it's for you for free, but we're asking for your support. Hopefully it's a two-way street. So I downloaded this form. We're going to go back here, okay, to search. Now we want to condense that because 100,000 is way too many listings. So all I'm going to do, because I know my market, okay, I've reduced this to $80 to $100 a square foot. It was $100 to $120, but we have so many listings in my market. I've reduced that tier by $20 per square foot. So it takes 100,000 listings and it turns it into 1,800 listings. So I go from 100,000 to 1,800. And now I'm ready to look because I look at the math before looking at the house. Remember that. Never walk into a property until you've done the math. Please, please, guys, you're going to fall in love. Don't do it to yourselves. So we're going to look at the map now, and everything that comes up on this map should be or should have a high likelihood of being under market value. So I don't have to look at 100,000. I'm going to go into the market that we've been following, which is Kingwood. And wouldn't you know it, we have another house that came on the market right here. $96 a square foot. I can't make this up. My market is insane, first of all. And I will also have you know that there was I can barely breathe. I'm just like, $80,000 price cut. There was an $80,000 price cut on this property, $96 a square foot. You guys are about to see even more wedge. So a couple things, remember, okay, the hard part is getting the market price per square foot. The easy part is filling out that first part of the form. So I'm going to note the listing price, which is $173,000. I'm going to note the size of the house because we need to calculate wedge, which is 1,792. I'm going to take note of the subdivision, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is not the accurate subdivision. I was like, estate section 1, that's not a subdivision. So if you ever fall into that where the listing agent doesn't put the correct subdivision, just go to your legal description. And your legal description after lot and after block should list the subdivision right here. Okay. So the reality is the subdivision's here. It is not estate section 1. that's the end of the subdivision. Why would you do that? Anyways, it took me a minute. So those are the things that I want to take note of. Plus, I want their property taxes. So let me ask you guys that are watching this. I want you to guess in the comment section right now. Dooster, I expect you to get this right. Dooster, how much in property taxes are they paying, do you think? So $173,000 house. How much in property taxes are they paying? And how much is this house assessed for? Can you guys tell me in the comment section? And you guys see on the bottom right, I have all the comments live. Tell me how much you think per year it's being taxed. 173,000. You guys think it's 3,000, 5,000, 1,000? How much would you say, just based on common sense, should this person be paying on property taxes? 173,000 they're trying to sell it for. How much in property taxes do you guys think? But let's look right now, okay? So we're going to go to taxes right here, 173,000, remember. Okay. So John says 4,200, 4 grand, 250, 2,500, 0. Yeah, that's how much they should be paying. You get it, brother. You get it, brother. So 299. They're saying 400,000. Okay, so 4,125. Look at this. Okay, so that's the common, right? Most people think that. But when we go to the taxes, okay, look at another 4125, right? Look at 1,500, not 16,000. Like my state. Wrong. It's over 6,000. It's over 6,000. I'm going to show you guys right now. 173,000. Remember that? Let's go to the taxes, because there's a reason why we have this case. There's a reason why we're asking for your support. There's a reason why we need help. Okay, so it's, first of all, look at the atrocity. Okay, this $173,000 house is being assessed for $335,000. It is overassessed by about $160,000. How do you justify that? It's almost overassessed by how much they're trying to sell it for. See this tax amount right here? Let me scroll down and see that tax amount, that $3,712. That's just for Humble ISD. That's just one. Look at it, keeps going. Which one's the biggest? The ISD is the biggest by far. The total amount of taxes, $7,863. Is that not shocking? All right. So anyways, I come back here to the subdivision analysis form. Here's Forest Cove. Okay, I'm checking 1-year comp analysis. Give this to a realtor. If you guys don't know how to do it, just hand this form to a realtor. If you're a realtor, start using this because this is easy. Main Street, purchase price, size of house, and the taxes. Now, I will tell you guys that I did a payment calculator on this house. So when we go into our mortgage report, you're going to see what the payment would be on this house with an FHA minimum down. Okay, so I did do that for you. But now what we need to find out is the market value of price per square foot. So we have to figure out this box. This is the only reason you need realtors. Their help anyways. And if you're a realtor, please help people do this. So I'm going to copy the subdivision because I want to figure out my wedge. So I need to figure out how much property is sold for in this subdivision. Okay, so we're going to go to search right here. We're going to lock it down to the subdivision. I'm going to paste that there. Okay, and then I only want to look at sold property because remember, it's sold property that creates the market value. All right. So here we go. I have 4 properties. You guys see on the lower left, it gives me 4 properties, not many. The more comps usually the better. Now, remember, when I select these, I only want homes that are about the same size, about a 500 square foot variance. So of these 2 comps, only the first 2, because here's the square footage, are within that. Okay. The bottom 2 are way bigger. So I only want to select these 2. And if I didn't have this system, I would add the sales prices and the size of the house together and divide by 2 because I'm only using 2 comps. So I'm going to go to stats. I'm going to divide this with the tabular service here. And you see that the average price per square foot based on those 2 properties in that subdivision. Remember, you guys, this is being sold for $96 a square foot. You follow me? So the average price per square foot with the smaller houses, average of a 2,000 square foot house, you see that right there. But the price per square foot is $172. Okay, so I come back here. I put $172 there. So now I have my market price per square foot in the subject properties subdivision. Now I could start doing math. Okay, so I take the size of the house, which is $1,792. I multiply it by the market price per square foot, which is $172. Gives me gross market value of $308,224. I reduce that by the sales price of $173,000. Boom, and that gives me wedge. That's gross wedge. Okay, remember the gross part, $135K. That's a pretty good one, man. And that's a small house, so it's now one thing I forgot to do. So I got $135,000 in wedge. Okay, that's really good, guys. Considering. But when I go back here, let me see if I could just go back easily. I want to show you guys real quick. Hopefully it will let me. No, it's not. All right, hold on. I want to show you guys the condition of the house. Now that the math works, let's look at the condition and see if 40,000 is even enough. Because remember the gross part, right? So you have to pay things before it's the actual wedge. Like fixing it up, for example, would be one. Okay, so we're going to go into that area again, and I want to show you guys what the house looks like. And this is all in the 3 years I've kept you guys here. 3 years in this market. just so we could do things like today. That way everyone knows we're in Kingwood. It's the same little market, but let's go to the listing. Take a look at the pictures. Okay, let's see what this thing looks like. Okay, so the first is like, okay, well, I'm a little worried about that roof, right? Not too bad, I guess. Let's keep going. Okay, cool. Not still a little bit concerned. Okay. Oh my gosh, look at that, Mitch. Okay, we're kind of in the way. I'm so sorry. Let me move us out of the way. Can I do it like this? Yeah, that's a little better. Okay, so wow, right? For that much wedge and that much under market value, that's not bad. Doesn't look like the entire frame is around the fireplace, but that's not bad. Dang, Mitch, let's go, Mitch. Let's go get this one. I'm just kidding. Well, look at new floors. Not too bad, right? Kitchen's missing some drawers. It's kind of a bummer, but not too bad. Granite countertops. You got your backsplash in the back. You know, oh my God, let's act like we didn't look at that. Oh my, there's always something, right? Holy smokes. I got to say that it's probably a tree that fell on the roof. That's what I'm thinking. Because look at that. So they got a tarp over it. This tarp fell off, so they just stopped caring completely. So they no longer care. Because why would you take a picture and have the tarp on the ground? Does that show that you care about your house, or does it show you don't care? So we got problems, guys. We got problems. Look at the fascia hanging off. So you got fascia hanging off. You got the rain gutter hanging off. So this whole section here has probably got mold as well. But that's going to be some real problems. Okay, not as bad here. It's just that one side of that. It looks real bad. Jeez. Let me look at this real quick. That looks pretty interesting. I don't see any. I see a little bit of cracks on that corner of the foundation. Nothing that. Oh my gosh, look at that. So that's a close-up of it. Dang,
Yeah,
that's got to be true.
It's rotted. The
On top
whole
of
roof is rotted. It's got waves in it. I can see it.
Yeah, it's wet. It's soaking wet. You think a tree hit this?
No, but the entire roof is bent because it's surrounded. The trees have literally caused the roof to stay wet.
This is bad.
The whole roof is a tear off, you know, all the way down. Yeah. Yeah.
Look, it's just soaking wet. So it's warped like this, hanging off. That's crazy, man. You know, if it's me and I want to sell the house, right? Like if I actually want to sell this property, I'm going to clean it up a little bit. I'm not going to leave it in such a horrible mess. Now, that's the first thing, guys. So we did our local analysis on the wedge. So now what I want to do is let's do the analysis on Cleburne. So we're going to do a quick analysis on Cleburne because remember, part of our analysis should now include property taxes. So part of the analysis is property taxes because some metro areas are drowning in property taxes for the next 40 years. And some metro areas are actually paying down the bonds and actually have potential for reduced property taxes. So we're going to look at Cleburne. Now, the first thing I want to point out is they're down year over year 3.1%. So Cleburne is down 3.1%. Let's go to this next thing here. And here's what I wanted to show you. When you go and you look at the local debt, so property taxes pay local debt. That's why it's important to look at local debt. So property taxes, they pay local debt. If it's local debt's high, the property tax is going to be high probably forever. But look at Cleburne. What you'll notice here is they have been paying down their debt for ISD bonds since 2020. Look at this. So when I first see this, I'm like, yes, this is great. Finally, a school district that hasn't passed more bond debt. But unfortunately, what I found is the only reason they haven't passed more bond debt is because the residents have shot it down. So that also tells me this. Cleburne is in a position to have reduced property taxes in the coming years. Cleburne is in a real possibility to have reduced property taxes. And it shows me that the citizens are united and working together to make sure that their city and their school districts do not get in more debt. Now, here's the problem, all right? So first I was like, yes, they're doing it right, but then I found out that they have another bond election this November. So let me show you guys real quick. So remember, if you want to see what's really going on in the bond department, let me just change the screen. In the bond department, you must go to the bond election notice. So the first thing is that I want to show you is this bond election notice tells us how much debt they're currently in. So Cleburne is currently in $202 million in debt, but they're asking for 3 more bonds. One's for a total liability of $341 million. Why does it have to be so much? That's one bond at $341 million. Plus they're voting on a second bond that's going to create $102 million in debt. and they have a third bond that's going to create $5.1 million in debt. The total of all of that debt is an additional $449 million. So they want to essentially triple the debt. So they want to triple the debt just as they started paying this down. So they want this thing to skyrocket it past, this chart's not even big enough. That's how much debt they want to create. And that's, and again, the bond election notice. Now, the thing is how much money are they receiving from property taxes to pay this, right? So when we go here to their annual budget, remember, you can go to the ISD's annual budget. Here's the budget right here. And the first thing that I want to show you guys is their annual budget. As you see here in Cleburne, ISD is $30 million. The reason I'm pointing this out is because Cleburne ISD, the bigger problem is the gross mismanagement of money. They have gross mismanagement of money because what do you guys hear? Property taxes pay for what? Police, firefighters, and schools, right? Property taxes pay schools. That's it. But what Cleburne says and is showing you is that's not true. Not even half of the property taxes are funding the school district. Look at projected state income, $37.2 million. So they're getting $37.2 million from people that don't even live in that city. They got a real problem here, guys. So again, tax revenue from taxes, 30 million, but state revenue, they're not even supposed to be getting that, is 37, meaning it's more state than actual property taxes. Remove property taxes, eliminate property taxes. Now I had to look here carefully and I found line 14. So remember, there's two property taxes. There's M&O and there's INS. M&O is for like teacher salaries. INS is for bonds. Look at, so they're collecting. This is how you do this. You got to figure out how much money they're collecting, because you got to figure out how long it's going to take to pay off the debt. They're collecting $20 million. You see that right there, INS tax collectibles. Okay. So first of all, we take the existing bond debt of 202. Let's just round it down. Okay. Divided by the 20 million that they're collecting, 20061,499. 10 years. Okay. So at first that's not too bad. So their current debt, it will take them 10 years to pay it off, right? Okay, they're on their way. They're on their way. They're on their way to lower taxes. That's great. But the unfortunate thing here, guys, if you add those, if those bond debts pass, the whole city's doomed. If those bonds pass, everyone's taxes skyrocket, even though it says they don't. And I'm going to show you that they're lying to their people because they're saying that taxes aren't going to go up. So only add the 202 here, and let's see how long it's going to take to pay this off. So the total amount of debt is about 651 million. If the bond debt passes, so then we divide again by the current taxes, because we already know they're going to increase the taxes. They're going to say they're not, but they will. 32 years. Okay, so they're going to be drowning in debt for 32 years if they do this. Now, here's the crazy thing, guys. Okay, look at this. So this is how they're selling people. Okay, this is a presentation made by Cleburne to give to people. And this is what this is saying, okay? And understand, first of all, if they do nothing, property taxes are going to decline, and they're going to decline pretty significantly. So if they do nothing, property taxes automatically go down. That's what they don't tell you. By passing it, you're actually raising the property taxes, not letting them go down. But this is what this says. Tax impact. Everyone needs to understand this because they are bamboozling all of us. The property tax impact associated with the $232 million bond for Cleburne, which ends up being over $400 million, ISD is based on a 231 average home value with a homestead exemption, will decrease my property taxes $39 a month if all three propositions are approved. So it's sneaky. They're saying if you pass this, your taxes will go down. Okay. But what they're not saying is if you don't pass this, if they would say, if you don't pass this, you will save $200 a month. That would be a lot more genuine. That would be a lot more transparent. These people have the potential to save way more than $40 a month if they don't pass this. But look at how sneaky this is. This is so sneaky, you guys. It's absolutely despicable. Anyways, I hope you guys liked it. That is my housing market update. I don't think anyone gives you as thorough an update as that because we're showing you the math and wedge, right? How to do that live on air, and then also how to do a property tax analysis on a city. So hope you guys like that. Comment below. Let me know if you like that. Mitch, anything you want to go over before we go into the video about Zillow getting sued?
Three things. I believe it was Fuzzy that asked about the mutual funds and the idea of investing in mutual funds. We can't tell people what to do. If you're asking me, would I do it? No. But see, not unless you truly understand how a bond valuation spreadsheet works and an amortization schedule for the bonds work, best you not be playing in that market. Because your yield could only be 4.5%. Well, as I've shown Travis, just in the silver, you can do that in 2 days. And if you know how to trade, that's where the real education, that's where the real power comes back to you, because you're not relying on somebody who doesn't understand how to hedge. If you've got a mutual fund and you're not hedging, or you've got bonds and you're not hedging because your assistant, CFA, it doesn't understand how to hedge, you're exposed. You're full exposure all the way down. So if you want to learn how to trade, best place to go is tastylive.com. If you want to learn how to do chart reading, brookspriceaction.com. These are by far the best resources available. Tasty is free, and they do actually have a brokerage company as well, so they can walk you all the way through. If your planner doesn't understand how to hedge or how even a hedge works, then probably best to get your money out of harm's way. With regard to the homes, price is what you pay and value is what you receive. If you don't have a margin of safety, best to pass. You can see the margin of safety in the home affordability spreadsheet and an amortization schedule. Those two will tell you the truth. If you don't have cash reserves for an emergency and cash for peace of mind, you're exposing yourself to something you probably don't want to get involved in at the high end of the market, which is where we are. With regard to JCAD, that's Johnson Central Appraisal District, Peter Svensson and that JCAD board are fully aware of exactly what is going on, because they hired a forensic accountant to go through and determine the level of fraud that had been committed by the previous chief appraiser and the employees at JCAD. That's in the process of happening right now. So when you realize criminal behavior has occurred, the prior courts in my case said fraud has occurred. Well, what are they really doing? And this is to the point of the spreadsheet that Travis just showed you, the balance sheet analysis. The school district superintendents have their hand out for state matching funds and federal matching funds. So what they're really doing is they're creating a fraud, saying, well, we need this money. In other words, they're managing the lack of efficiency of the spend. When you put a budget together, you're supposed to have line item details as to what's in that budget. Well, these school district superintendents don't care. Whatever we screw up isn't a problem. We'll just get it in the form of a bond. We'll cover it up. Well, that's what they've done. So de facto, the federal government themselves is being ripped off by these school district superintendents. This is part of the fraud. They manage the lack of efficiency of the spend to get the money, their hands on the bonds. That's what this is. This is a fraud of biblical proportions. And it all comes back to the criminality at the school districts. And as we said, they're not there for the children. They're there for the bonds. They're there for the money.
Well said, sir. I got another question for you, but first let's go to the video for Zillow and let's see what's going on with Zillow and these lawsuits. Excuse me. And then we're going to go into Amicus Page 16. Great work so far, Mitch. Let's mute ourselves and you guys enjoy. Let me know that the volume's okay. Oh my gosh, Sean and Wendy are here. Where you been, Sean and Wendy? And Bobcat's here too. So nice to see you guys. Enjoy the video.
Breaking news on the housing front now. Diana Olick with the details. Hey, Di.
Hey, Scott. Yeah, the Federal Trade Commission just announced it is suing Zillow and Redfin over what it alleges is an unlawful agreement that eliminates Redfin as a competitor in the market for advertising rental homes on internet listing services. That's ILSS. That's like the MLS for rentals as opposed for home buying. The websites renters use to find listings. Now, Redfin and Zillow operate two of the largest rental ILS networks by traffic and revenue, including sites like Zillow Rentals, Rent.com, and ApartmentGuide.com. The complaint alleges that in February of this year, Zillow and Redfin entered into an illegal agreement to dismantle Redfin as a competitor in the ILS advertising market for multifamily rental properties in exchange for a $100 million payment, it alleges, and other compensation from Zillow The complaint says Redfin agreed to end its contracts with advertising customers and help Zillow take over that business. Now, I've reached out to Redfin CEO Glenn Kelman as well as to Zillow. Zillow stock is down 4% on this. So far, no comment from the two of those. But Scott, you may remember earlier this year that the FTC went out for apartment landlords, alleging that they were using different motives to keep pricing in a certain level, and that was they actually went after Greystar earlier this year for that. So you can see that they're looking on the payment side as well as on the advertising side for all rental housing.
Alrighty, so we're going to go into the Amicus. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, guys. Clear my throat like that. So embarrassing. Let's go into the Amicus, guys. Page number 16. I got my stamp on. And again, as we're reading this, and this page is a little bit, it's pretty fast because we've gone over a lot of this already. But if you guys agree with this, if you support it, any inclination at all, and you can be a renter as well. Sorry, I'm getting choked up here. I'm so excited that we're going through this document. But if you guys, as we're reading this, if you agree with what we're saying, you understand our frustrations, you do want to make a difference, don't forget support. But page 16, okay? Let's start in Patel. In Patel, this court struck down an economic regulation that imposed oppressive burdens. So again, remember, he's trying to have the Texas Supreme Court rule that the case needs to be shot back down to the lower court so that the lower court has to rule on this case, disproportionate to any legitimate government interest. The court emphasizes that Texas constitutional provides substantive protections against laws and procedures that leave citizens without a meaningful remedy. And remember, that happened to me, and everyone. The same principle applies here, forcing property owners to litigate systemic fraud exclusively before, and here it is, guys. Here's, again, I keep trying to make this point, exclusively at the ARB. The ARB isn't designed to confront, understand, or interpret fraud. Okay, they're not capable of that. They're not even capable of doing their jobs, in fact. And their job is to make sure that the CAD is valuing our properties fairly. So they can't even do that job correctly. With no discovery and no capacity to address fraud, this creates an illusionary remedy. So it's fake. Under Patel, such an arrangement is unconstitutional. Everyone knows that, even my children. Petitioners' claims thus fall squarely within the framework of due course protections already articulated by the court. And again, he's referencing equal and uniform methodology and the case, okay? And petitioners allege widespread creation of arbitrary class codes, manipulation of property records. We know we got them on audio, and we still can't get this guy arrested and kicked out. We got him on audio, removing the data from the system and manipulating it. We got these guys nailed, and still we can't find enough people in enforcement to do something about it. It's tyranny. And let's see, and disproportionate valuations of like properties. These allegations are not unlike the valuation inconsistencies at issue in Valero. Okay, so he's doing that one. They're also talking about this case, the Willis CAD and Sebastian Cotton and Grain. Petitioner here presents evidence of systemic overvaluation of farmland. So they heard it on farmland. Why won't they hear it on homes for people, right? That makes no sense. Takings without compensation, and then V here, or this is 7, statewide importance. And if you're in Texas, please support us, guys. We're really trying here. Finally, the Supreme Court of Texas has repeatedly recognized that it may grant review where issues present questions of statewide importance. Okay, here, systemic appraisal inflation underpins billions of dollars in school district bond guarantees. That's why we keep talking about these bonds in school districts. If we didn't have to talk about it because they weren't involved, then we wouldn't be talking about it because they wouldn't be involved. But they are involved because the schools are being used as a shell and a mechanism to facilitate the transfer of money. And they also create money supply, not education. They're better at creating money supply than actually educating our children. That's in the data. So this is exposing not only taxpayers, but also the integrity of Texas municipal bond market. The issue of this is not, this is a substantial and statewide issue is essentially what this is saying. Mitch, you know, as we make our way through this, again, I can't reiterate how proud I am of everyone that's been following along so far. This is a complicated situation. That's a legal document. And you guys, that document, the amicus is basically, it's like he's helped us formulate our opinion, right? So it's like our opinion. So I'm reading it as if it's you and I that wrote that. That's what the amicus is. Mitch, we need people's support. We need people to write the letter to the Texas Supreme Court. The amount of days, months, hours, the amount of time put into this, overwhelming. The amount of money, overwhelming. Writing a letter of support, hopefully not as overwhelming. What can you say about page 16? Anything you want to add?
It's the combination of everything we're talking about here. And shockingly, it ties back to what you were just saying with Zillow and Redfin. So Zillow and Redfin have committed what is called antitrust and anti-combines, if you're in Canada, problems, where they try to knock each other out or join forces. Well, here's the problem. Hotel companies can literally move you as a hotel guest from one hotel to the other, and you don't even know you've been moved. They can literally use AI to say, well, this hotel is now booked, even though that may not be true, and put you in an adjacent hotel somewhere down the road because that one has facilities available, has a hotel room available. Well, you've been manipulated and you don't even know you've been manipulated. So the numbers that, and we have dumped on Redfin and Zillow in the past, right? Because I said the numbers aren't real. It was just on its face, it was easy to see. So the numbers, generally speaking, are not real. You don't know what it is you're looking at because they produce a certain data set and say, well, this is the truth, and it's not necessarily the truth. Why is that important? Well, because the only thing that I've been pounding the table on that is important is the median household income. That is the truth. That is what you can afford. Everybody else pumping numbers and pumping stories doesn't matter. It's white noise. So it all comes back down to the household income, and that median household income, that language is in that amicus brief. It is in our trial brief. It's everywhere because that gets you to the truth. The idea that you lever up these school districts, these bonds, 20 to 1, 30 to 1, 40 to 1. In Texas, you can run a bond out 40 years. Well, the point of the matter is when your outstanding cumulative compound interest is bigger than the original principal, you've got a problem. Your debt is bigger than your assets. Technically, you're bankrupt. Therein lies the problem. So everything that Travis just went through in that amicus literally ties back to the manipulation of data. And it ties back to one simple fact. These school district superintendents are not there for your children. They're there for the money.
Mitch, that is the harsh reality of what's really going on. Now, let's go into our mortgage update. And don't forget, the mortgage update is going to have a custom payment for the property that we analyzed at the beginning of this, which is, I thought that was pretty cool. I thought you guys would like that because everything is custom that we're doing and everything is live that we're doing. So I hope you guys love it. Mitch means math. That's hilarious. I love P Nice. By the P Nice, look at his logo. He's a huge supporter. I hope that you're growing, P Nice, and you're learning and you're getting as much value as we get from you. So let's look at the mortgage market. First of all, I can't wait to do the ADP revision video. We're probably going to make that video later today. So I'm really excited about that. But here's the 10-year on the news. Look at this. Looks a little bit before the news, but about on the news of ADP. Boom, 10-year drops. So 10-year going down. Almost 4 basis points. It's going to have a slight effect on residential mortgage rates, just a tiny effect, still elevated. Remember, before they started the rate campaign, this was under 4, right? So in other words, the federal funds rate, it has nothing to do with the 10-year treasury, which has to do with residential mortgage rates. So here's what mortgage rates are sitting at today. Conventionals on your upper left. Most people want conventional, but they don't know why, right? They're like, yeah, conventional because I have good credit, but you don't know why you want conventional. There's only one practical reason, but there's 2 reasons total that conventional is better than FHA. The unpractical reason is because sellers assume that you're better qualified. So if a seller gets an offer, a conventional and FHA, honestly, a lot of times they're going to take conventional over FHA because they're going to assume that that buyer is better qualified. So you have that preconceived notion. But the second reason and the more practical reason is conventional eventually and can possibly not have mortgage insurance. If you have a 20% down payment on a conventional, you will not have mortgage insurance, and mortgage insurance does not help us. It only allows them to lend to us. It protects the banks. So some people are still confused what mortgage insurance is. But again, you guys, the difference in interest rates is about 30 basis points from a conventional to an FHA. So you're going to want to do your research. You're going to want to do your math. Let's go to the amortization schedule, and then we're going to go to the payment schedule, and we're going to look at how much it would cost to buy the house we just looked at. But when we look at the average loan amount, just looking at amortization, which is the most important thing for you guys to understand when it comes to a mortgage. You must understand how these things work. If you do not understand it, if you do not listen to us, you are going to be a servant to the banks forever. But if you listen to what we say and you do some things different, you guys are going to be able to, a higher likelihood, right? Every situation is different. Higher likelihood that you guys are going to be safe. Okay, so please pay this down. But here's what I wanted to show you guys. 324, today's interest rate of 6.35%. If you get a loan amount of $324,000, you end up paying back in principal and interest $727,000. So if you don't use a mortgage the right way, I want you guys to look at a mortgage as a department store credit card. Everyone knows that a department store credit card is absolutely awful because you pay so much back in interest. Same thing as a mortgage, but there's ways to turn it into a good loan for you or a better loan for you. And the way that you do that, you guys, is you pay extra money towards principal. The reason that's so important is because it's front loaded with interest. The first year you pay back over $20,000 in interest while only paying the loan down $3,700. But the last year of this loan, year number 30, you only pay back $817 in interest, and principal payments go to $23,000. In fact, it's not until year 20 that I've highlighted right there where you actually flip the script and you got more money going towards principal versus interest. You see year 20, $12,000 towards principal, $11,000 towards interest. So it takes you 20 years to start doing that, or you don't have to wait 20 years. You could just make an extra payment. Say you just made $100 a month, just a little bit. Okay, just $100 a month. Let's see what that does. So you do extra payment of $100 a month and you save. It's just so crazy to me that you can save so much time. I mean, these things should be illegal. You save almost 4 years, okay, and $60,000 in interest. So if you guys want to save 60 grand in 4 years, you pay $100. Guess what would happen if you paid $500 a month, right? It's going to save a lot of money. Now, here's the other thing, the actual mortgage calculator. So what I did here is, first of all, I'm going to show you how much more expensive it can be to own versus rent. And the reason I'm telling you that is because you got to be careful. Is there homes right now that are under market value that could cash flow? 100% there is, but do you know how to find them? If you don't know how to find them, you don't know a mortgage calculator, you don't know how to do comp analysis, take my free courses. Because if you take those free courses, you will learn how. Go to realestatemindset.org and take those courses for free. And people are like, oh, what about my email address? I don't even send any emails out, you guys. I don't even care if your email address is in there. I just want you guys to learn. Here's the mortgage calculator. I've taken the asking price of $173,000. The down payment on FHA is 3.5%, 30-year, today's interest rate of 6.04. I put in the property taxes of $7,863, $3,000 insurance. It could be more. I don't know. I put the PMI at 0.55 for FHA, which is going to bring my total payment to about $2,000. So that payment to buy that house, minimum down. And before you protest the property taxes, $1,990. But this is also what I want to show you. Okay, so I want to show you this first of all. Okay, so in 30 years on a $170,000 home, you pay back more than the value of the house. So $173,000 home, property taxes paid in that same time, $235,000. So you guys start to see you guys start to understand the problem of property taxes, especially here in Texas. But also what I want you to understand is the total amount you would pay roughly over 30 years is $700,000. So you pay $100% of your money is wasted in rent. Well, over 300% of your money could be wasted in home ownership if you're not buying responsibly. And if you've been watching Real Estate Mindset, you've been taking these courses, I expect you guys to be responsible buyers. And I also expect you guys to be proud of yourselves for being disciplined. And the last thing that I expect is for you guys to pass the message on, because it's free and it's only designed to improve people and to help people. So Mitch, before I go into page 17 of the Amicus, sir, do you have anything you want to add to the mortgage update?
Yes. the fees that would be paid at closing for your mortgage should be paid for in cash and not part of your mortgage, because you are probably saying $5,000 today cash versus $20,000 in 30 years worth of value. And that means that $5,000 in cash and fees up front overruns the value that you receive. So you're working against yourself. So anything you can do to wipe out that debt faster is making you roughly 4.5% on your money immediately. And that's money that you don't have to lay out in the mortgage. It's just literally a rate of return on the money you did not have to spend. So now compare that to the yield that we were talking about before on the US Treasury. So if the US Treasury, apples to apples, is 4.5% versus a savings of the 4.5% you just stuck in your pocket, your security is your property, not the US Treasuries. You're much better off putting that money and paying that mortgage down as fast as humanly possible. And one of the ways you do that, you don't spend money on fees. In other words, the point I'm making, if you don't have the cash to pay the fees up front, don't do the deal. You're spending money that you don't have to spend. Better to be safe and have a true margin of safety in your home and realize that is your security, especially if you've got a homestead. That's your absolute security, not US Treasuries, not bonds, not things you don't understand, and not things that aren't in your control by virtue of your 401k or your pension because you handed it off to a certified financial analyst. It's your security. You have to protect that mortgage no matter what. Got to pay it down.
Yeah, and a lot of people, and this is a good point here, and so a lot of people don't understand that if they refinance, they just destroy their financial situation. They think that like, oh, I'm going to save $100 a month. This is a slam dunk. No, it's not. You got to look at the closing costs. You got to look at the fact that you have to restart your amortization schedule. So I'm going to just say that probably most of the refinances going on right now are not good refinances right now. They're not good at all. They're just continuing to be enslaved into that debt or a servant of that debt. So it's not good. Let's go into the Amicus page 17 right now. We'll get through this pretty quickly, guys. And we're almost done here, and I really appreciate you. And again, if you agree with what we're talking about, please, pretty please actually, with the cherry on top, send a letter of support in. And if you don't have time to send a letter of support in, that's okay, but at least share this information with other people. Because remember, in the case of Salina ISD, that got in $4 billion in debt, okay, they have a population of 60,000 people. It only took 1,400 people to vote yes. 1,400 people. I want you guys to think of this. Less than 3% of the total population passed the bonds. 3%, less than 3% passed those bonds, and it's $4 billion. That's Salina. So let's go into page 17. And if you guys support this, please send the letter. If you agree, send the letter, please, you guys. All right, so here we go. So here's our first statement right here. Jurisdictional statement. This case presents questions of exceptional, constitutional, and statewide importance. The Court of Appeals decision insulates systemic fraud in property appraisals from any judicial remedy by confining taxpayers to the Appraisal Review Board. And you guys are getting it by now, especially if you've been following along. Remember, I showed you that case that I have against Steve Friends. That lack of authority to adjudicate fraud, that result violates, and again, those 4 cases he referenced, this is not Patel or Clearfield. I keep saying Clearwater. I wish we had Clearwater, not full of PFAS, because these appraisal practices directly underpin billions of dollars in permanent school fund guarantee bonds. The case implicates not only constitutional rights of Texans, but also the financial stability of the state, and review under Texas government code right here. But again, open courts guarantee, due cause of law, equal and uniform. And then this is robbing us of our future equity. And again, application to current cases. So he's listed the systemic fraud and administrative exclusivity. We have cases there, Mitch has outlined. The evidentiary findings, we have documented patterns, and that includes home affordability collapse. 72% cannot afford the average market value. 72%. They're bankrupting 72%. Systemic financial risk. You guys know about that as well, because of the fraudulent tax rolls underpin billions in school bonds. We went over that. D is federal and state coordination, because securities fraud is a RICO precedent and affects interstate commerce. State remedies alone are inadequate. So we need the SEC, FDIC, and Federal Reserve to step up, because this is a federal problem. It really is. Now, here's the prayer for relief. Now, they say prayer for relief on legal documents. To me, it makes my stomach Mitch, and this is nothing towards you, but anytime I read a court document that says we're going to pray, I'm like, usually I'm praying to God to save these people, because to use prayer and act like you're using prayer in a court. First of all, you're not supposed to take people through court in the Bible. It says you're not supposed to take people to court. It drives me crazy because they're using religion as propaganda. And that's not a knock on you. This is just the template, Mitch. This is the template of how they do it. But I'm just saying personally, I know 100% no one's praying. I know 100% the only person that's praying about this is probably me. Probably the only person, maybe you as well, Mitch, but I hate it. I hate when they say prayer. I know no one's praying. But that is page 17. And you guys don't forget to go to Mockingbird Properties if you want to show your support and you want to get more information. This is Mitch's website. You can click on the upper right here, DCAD, and it has all of this beautiful evidence here. Just absolutely just exceptional work here. And I'm not even joking. I mean, you guys go through this for months. There's so much here. And then after that, go to realestatemindset.org and you can come here. You can take everything is for free. I want you guys to take a look at this here. This is the one-page talking points from the Amicus. So of that 80-page document that we're going over, I try to put as much as I could into one page. So if you guys want to be an expert and you want to start telling people why we don't need property tax and the issue with the ISD bonds, download this form right here. It's all the talking points. But again, if you want to know how to buy real estate and just how to get a loan, any of that stuff, just take these courses. This is the trifecta. So these are the three things I want you guys to use to become experts. First one's home buying masterclass, teach you about mortgage and all of that stuff. Second one is how to do the math. And the third one is the sheet that I wrote for you. But if you scroll down, we also have more stuffs on how to fight property tax, how to end property. We have so much here for you, but none of it matters unless you guys take the time to empower yourself. So hopefully you guys take advantage of that mechanism. Mitch, great live today, sir. I appreciate your time and your expertise. Anything you want to say about page 17?
Not on page 17, but with regard to the websites, commonsenselaw.org is the third leg of this stool. So my website, Travis's website, and commonsenselaw.org. Commonsenselaw.org refers quite a bit to the 313 agreements and the energy contracts. And that's what makes that site so interesting, because again, this is the pattern and practice across the United States. When you see these windmill farms and these energy contracts at the schools, and you see all the mechanisms under the hood, well, all of that stuff is associated with bonds and debt. The problem is you can't get to the truth of what the value of those outstanding bonds are. But this is happening everywhere. And these energy contracts are a huge problem. These 313 agreements, they allow them to do all sorts of things. Yeah, you can have an oil field. That's true. That, at least that's somewhat calculable. But the ramifications of what is happening, they have different names for them. So they switched from the 313 agreement. Now they're calling it a JEDI. Either way, it's literally taking money out of property owners' pockets to support their pet projects. And their pet projects are failing. The windmill farms are failing. They were complete nonsense from the word go, because they required the support of the federal government or the state government in terms of subsidies to make it work from the word go. They used the taxpayers' money as part of the developer's equity to make these transactions occur. They have foregone your money that you would be receiving into your school district in favor of supporting a private industry. And that industry was a failed construct because it required both federal and state funding subsidies in order to make it happen. So there's three component parts here, but these three websites lay all this out.
You're very good. And just one more time for Fuzzy Booger. Again, thank you for the support. You as well, Austin. It means a lot to me. I wanted to bring one more thing up from Fuzzy, especially because his support. And again, we appreciate that. This is a little bit impossible, but he's asking Mitch approximately how long will it take for some of these thugs to get arrested on the spot. I mean, I tried to get Steve arrested on the spot. I mean, I had video evidence of him assaulting me. I know that there is a school that has already been I guess, prosecuted by the SEC. I'm not 100% sure if it led to arrests. Do you know, Mitch? And do you expect, because all of this stuff that we haven't told him that's going on in the background, like with the SEC and stuff like that, do you have an idea of when that ball is going to drop? When, and what I'm saying specifically, when do you believe that as an example, the SEC is going to get involved?
Well, technically, the SEC is involved. They're looking at it both at a state and a federal level. The answer to the question, people being arrested, I've said straight up, I intend to put Don Spencer, the chief appraiser of Denton Central Appraisal District, behind bars. There are other people who are culpable in aiding and abetting a criminal conspiracy to defraud. This evidence is laid out. Now, it does take prosecutors to step to the plate, and people are starting to be very concerned about this. But here's what's I believe is going to happen. They will start turning on themselves when it is recognized full throttle that the Texas bond program is insolvent. I've said it's insolvent. We've got the math to back it up. And here's how you get there very quickly. If you simply say, well, 1.8 billion between 2017 and 2025 is what was ripped off from the taxpayers in Denton County alone. And then that would mean that that damage model could be treble damages. You're $6 billion right on the spot. Okay, that's just Denton. Now let's take that same theory, that same math, and apply it to the Texas Bond Guarantee Program of the school districts, which allegedly has roughly $57 billion. De facto, they're insolvent. One fell swoop. Now let's add to that the amount of bond problems that are out there. When the bondholders wake up and they start suing everybody in sight, if Texas doesn't have it. But the point of the matter is you'd run out of that bond guarantee program as well. The state of Texas has no right whatsoever on these school district bonds to have access to the federal markets. They don't have any business having access because they have committed fraud, period, end of paragraph. We've got the evidence. Well, when the world starts waking up and saying, as in we get this put back in the lower courts and they have no choice but to start freaking out, that's when you start seeing people get arrested. But with that said, does it matter to mom and pop? Well, you have to send the message. So some people have to be arrested. There's no doubt about it. And the bottom line is you've got admissions at this point, even from the Attorney General of the state of Texas. They're not answering the questions. They can't answer the questions. So when you realize what's going on and how deep it is, okay, fine. Putting people in jail sends the message. It doesn't solve the problem. What solves the problem is the bill that I wrote for Helen Kerwin to backstop mom and pop and restore the balance sheet so that every property owner owns the land beneath their asset. So that's repeal the real estate tax in favor of the uniform state sales tax. That bill is top dead center of mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD. With regard to the issue on the bonds, how do we fix this mess? Well, I can't negotiate with myself. I have answers, I have ideas, but it's going to take the state of Texas sitting down with the federal government and saying, ladies and gentlemen, we are back to 2007, but it's now magnified because it's not just the real estate, it also includes the bonds. It's going to take a handful of very smart people that understand how to put this together. You put a floor under it, you put a ceiling on top of it, you cap the damages, and you start peeling back the fraud. And you're going to have to do that because it's the only way to be able to make something that's payable. My problem, I have ideas on the bonds, but that's not what Travis and I are focused on. We're focused on mom and pop. And the reality is by focusing on mom and pop, it proves that the Texas bond program is insolvent, and that will start the chain of events going. So some people will get arrested, some people will go to jail. The SEC will get involved. Job one, get this back to the lower courts. The Supreme Court of Texas has got to remand this case, let this thing be heard on its merits, and then it'll roll forward from there. We're setting it up so that the SEC in Washington can truly get involved heavy because they have subpoena power. They can walk into the Attorney General's office and say, turn over the documents, and if you don't, we'll arrest you on the spot. They can do that.
You know, I've heard a couple comments where, Mitch, people are like, it was the mayor of Salina who said this to me on social media. And he was like, these bonds are fine, right? He just passed $4 billion in bonds. He's like, these bonds are fine because they wouldn't be approved unless they were ran through this rating agency, in this underwriting process, and that rating agency determined that they're great bonds. But the problem is, and I want to tell the viewers this, with these rating agencies, they're not set up to detect the fraud. These rating agencies and these risk agencies, they're not designed to be taken advantage of through fraud. And because of that, they don't warn us about what's happening under the hood. They issue their AAA rating and they're done and everyone dismisses it. But again, they're not designed to pick up the fraud. And the AAA that rating is based on the forever taxes on property owners, which is
Okay.
absolutely outrageous. And then one more thing, also, because I was thinking about this morning, because I'm like, man, what happened to our government? So rating agencies, they're not designed to pick up fraud. In our government, I don't know who made it like this, and this is not good. Our government is designed to have honest people lead it, because you raise your hand, you know what I mean? You raise your, but that's it. It's designed for honest people. It's not designed, as far as for the people, it's not designed for dishonest leaders. And unfortunately, that's exactly what has happened over the past, I don't know how many decades. We now have a fraud system. So these rating agencies and these volatility indexes aren't picking up the distress. And then our country is being ran by total frauds and total clowns that they've learned that they can lie to us and get away with it and still get elected because they know how to use propaganda. So they treat us like animals and they treat us like sheep. What were you going to say, Mitch?
Okay, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
you're now on trial in the court of the public opinion. What evidence do you have that fraud was not committed by your central appraisal district? Answer the question, Mr. Mayor. The answer is you don't. Mr. Mayor, what evidence do you have that the bonds themselves, as established by your school districts, can be paid for per the bond QSIPs themselves? Oh, yeah, you don't. 2 questions, you're done. You lied to the public, you lied to Travis Spencer, and you did it on video.
I can't believe he did that on video. Well, no, he did it on social media. I have it all. Anyways,
Video,
guys,
social media, whatever. You know, it's public.
it's public. We're gonna keep doing this. Excuse me. Let me know if you guys want me to continue to do these boots on the ground videos. I love being outside more. I love flying my drone. I love being the cameraman. I love working angles and scenes and the FM stop. I mean, everything. Let me know if you guys want me to keep doing that. Probably the next 2 videos that I want to make outside. There's 3. I want to do. I want proof that these people are drinking on the construction site. I'm so sick and tired of these young homeowners buying houses that are falling apart, some of them which have mold and kill people. I'm sick of it, you guys. So I'm going to try to go undercover with my special lens, and I'm going to try to capture these people drinking on the job. That's 1. 2, I'm going to go to Salina, Texas, which is drowning in bond debt right now. People are completely oblivious. And it's almost as bad as Austin as far as home price decline. Number 3, I'm going to do one video where I go to Austin myself, and I'm going to rally in Austin myself. I'm probably going to go solo, and I want to show you guys, like, hey, just one person. I'm going to go here. I don't care if it's scary. I don't care if anyone shows up. We just have to show up. I'll have a little picket sign. I'll have a little brochure to hand out to people on why we should abolish property taxes, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it solo because I'm getting sick and tired of this. So let me know if you guys want me to keep doing videos outside. And other than that, is it Wednesday? Sorry that we had to do a Wednesday live. Normally what we're trying to do, just real quick before you go, Tuesdays and Saturdays live in the morning. So between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, just depending on what's going on in the market. But remember, Tuesday and Saturday, we didn't do yesterday because I was zonked from that trip to Dallas. I did a same-day trip and edited the video when I got back home. So it was brutal. So that's why the Wednesday today. But don't forget, guys, Tuesday, Saturday, and take the quiz questions. I want you to take the quiz, offer your support. And if you guys are out there investing in real estate, you guys already know we wish you luck and we hope you win.